Hello and welcome to Future Squared. Stephen Hawking once said that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, so let's adapt. My name is Steve Glaveski, and each week I'll bring you conversations with preeminent thought leaders from a variety of fields to help you think in a multidisciplinary way, keep goals in your professional and personal life, and better navigate what is fast becoming a brave, new world. Future Squared is brought to you by Collective Campus, an innovation accelerator that works with organizations to unlock their people's latent potential to create more impact for humanity and lead more fulfilling lives. If you need help driving your organization's innovation strategy, visit collectivecampus.io. And without further ado,
come with me if you want to live.
My guest today is Jin Kang, deal lead at Global Coin Research, an investment DAO that has poured over $30 million into deals since last year and generated an astounding 30x return in the process. In today's conversation, we talk about decentralized autonomous organizations, how investment DAOs differ from traditional early-stage funding mechanisms, how GCR sources its deals and who it has invested in, the regulatory landscape surrounding investment DAOs, trade-offs between centralization and pure decentralization, how DAOs might encode decision-making hygiene into their smart contracts, challenges DAOs face, how to build and sustain a Web3 community, and so much more. So with that out of the way, strap yourself in for my conversation with the one and only Jin Kang. Welcome to the show, Jin.
Thanks, Steve.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the program, joining me all the way from not so sunny New York City. I understand you're currently freezing, at least compared to me over here in the summer in Australia.
Exactly. It's about 18 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's freezing for sure.
18 Fahrenheit. Like, I don't even know. I think that's like low single digits. It must be snowing. Is that what you're telling me?
It snowed a couple days ago, and it was actually it was a snowstorm. So
right. Okay. Well, I love visiting New York, but perhaps I'll wait until July. So anyway, we'll move on from weather chat. Today we're here to talk all about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, as well as one DAO in particular, Global Coin Research, where you currently serve as deal lead. But before we jump into this weird, wonderful, crazy world of crypto and Web3, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your background and how you came to get into this space.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick background about myself. So I'm Jin. After graduating from Princeton in 2016, I did the typical traditional finance route, joined the M&A group at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. After spending 2 years there, I went to a private equity firm called Jumpspring Capital, which was founded by ex-HIG partner. And I spent about 3 years there and then decided to leave the traditional finance route and joined Global Coin Research as a deal lead late last year. And then I've been here for past 3 months, focusing on leading investments, assessing great investment opportunities in crypto and Web 3.0, and focusing on scaling Global Coin Research as a DAO to the next level.
Excellent. So tell me, it sounded like you were on an accelerated track, graduating from Princeton at 16.
I meant in 2016, but I wish I were that smart. I wish I were a prodigy.
I was like, man, I'm talking to a prodigy here. I've got to lift my game today.
Right, exactly. Fortunately, it was in 2016. So after graduating from Princeton, as I said, I was interested in learning more about how companies work and how they make key financial decisions to grow, get capital access. And I thought that was the best route for me to do that is go through a typical investment banking route and to go to investing side, which was private equity for me. Learned a lot, right? I got to learn about how investors think, how they assess companies, how to, communicate with strong managers and operators. But I decided to kind of shift to crypto because I liked two things, really. I met passionate and talented young people that I have met across different conferences, such as NFT NYC, which was my first event, and also the potential of this Web 3.0 technology that can disrupt and change how we live our lives. Those
Yeah.
two things really struck me as one thing I'd never really thought about in the past few years I was working. So that's why I decided to make a switch from traditional finance and to crypto.
Yeah. And I mean, outside of those two reasons, having made the jump about 9 years ago from the corporate world into entrepreneurship, for me, a big part of it was just having a little bit more autonomy around my decisions and how I spent my time rather than being a cog in a big bureaucratic machine. Having made that move from traditional finance into, say, GCR, have you found yourself just with a lot more freedom to actually put your own DNA onto this machine that you're building?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think I agree with you. I think it was liberating. I technically do not have a boss. It's really, you eat what you kill mindset, right? Like everything I do have an immediate impact to the GCR as a DAO, and also investment opportunities I bring to the community and invest as a community together. That mindset and that idea really was very attractive and appealing. So I really have enjoyed my work to date, to answer your question.
Yeah. And how important was going to, say, NFT New York in terms of meeting people face to face and getting immersed in the community? Because a lot of people might do some reading online, they'll check out a bunch of Discords, but is that something you recommend people take that next step to actually go out to, say, Consensus or one of the many crypto conferences, not only in the United States, but all over the world now?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to really, get into this space. If I have not met those, interesting, smart people in crypto, I don't think I would have made a jump from where I was to crypto. I think because I met so many young people, dropping out of college to build something, and smart people in, traditional tech companies building exciting project companies in crypto, made me think there must be a reason why these smart people are jumping into space. I need to learn more about it. And I think that really motivated me to decide to take a new chapter of my life by being a part of something that's disruptive rather than stable and just being a cog in the wheel, as you said.
Yeah, no, of course. And it sounds like going to those conferences provided you with a sense of social proof. Like, it's one thing to see someone on a Discord channel with an NFT as a profile pic and whatnot, and not really know too much about them. But when you meet them face to face, like, actually, this person is really smart. They've got an impressive background, yet they're choosing to say, leave JP Morgan or Google or whatever the case is and build their own DAO, for example. And for you, that gave you the confidence that, hey, if all of these smart people are doing it, then there's no reason why I shouldn't pursue this field as well.
Exactly. I think you summarized very well. So
awesome. Okay, so global coin research. What is global coin research? High level.
One sentence: we're an investment DAO with a research newsletter. That's
excellent.
That's a quick summary of us.
That's a quick summary of you. Now, for people who are listening to this who perhaps are relatively new to the world of Web3, what is a DAO?
So DAO it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, right? Like, think simply, it's an antithesis of current corporate structure and how organization is run. So, regardless of how much token or how much equity you hold, everyone has the same equal share, one vote, to make a level playing field for everyone. So think of it that way. It's a new way of running an organization. And I think the idea of smart contracts and token allows you to run the organization the way DAOs are supposed to run.
Yeah, excellent. And essentially, like you put it, it's a decentralized organization where, in the case of GCR, you can buy as little as, say, 100 tokens to access the community. And those 100 tokens at current market rates might set you back only about 200 odd US dollars, give or take. And of course, the more you buy, it gives you different sort of privileges, and you can then access deals and contribute to governance decisions and things of that persuasion. And, the community has grown from strength to strength. I mean, when did it actually start? Because I know right now there are 30,000 odd subscribers to the newsletter and over 2,000 members in the Discord channel. But how long has GCR been going, Jin?
Yeah, it has been, you might ask, like, you guys have been around for at least a few years, but the truth is we've started last year, really. So we've had a exciting growth, and now we're approaching over 2,500 members in our investment DAO. And as you said, we have over 30,000 subscribers in our research newsletter that gave us the start.
Wow. And it's quite funny you say that because, you listen to podcasts and whatnot about this burgeoning space of Web3 and all of these DAOs and whatnot that have come along and just dominated. But you look at when they all kicked off and it's literally like 2021, so many influencers in the space as well who just started writing articles on Mirror or Substack like July 2021. And now they've got these huge influential names in the space. And it just speaks to how new and rapidly evolving the space is, but also the opportunities that exist in this space. Like if you, for example, say you wanted to make a name for yourself in a certain field, but you were on Web2, you wanted to jump on Instagram and do that. That's a slow burn. It's going to take you 2-3 years of pumping out content to just be noticed. Whereas in the world of Web3, because it's all new and it is such a supportive community, if you actually put in the time to learn, to contribute, you can actually develop quite a bit of influence and meet a lot of cool people and get access to lots of opportunities relatively quickly, or so it seems.
Exactly. I think the traction has been crazy. And as you said, because of the community behind every project has been very supportive, you can actually start off few months in and you might have followers of over 30,000, 100,000, or even a million, given the community backing is something we've just never seen in a traditional tech world.
Yeah. I was listening to, I think it was Zeneca, an NFT influencer with about 150K odd Twitter followers, talking about getting into NFT consulting. And the answer he gave, I think it was in a Twitter Spaces group, to the question, when did you start consulting? Is like, like October 2021. So it was literally like four months ago, and the guy's huge in the space now.
Exactly.
So he said GCR is an investment DAO, and effectively what that is a group of people who pool capital to invest in opportunities. They could be early stage, it could be later stage opportunities, but effectively in some way, shape, or form, this is helping to democratize investment in early stage opportunities. Before we get into an investment DAO and what an investment DAO is, just to touch on DAOs in general, I mean, there are numerous types of DAOs, whether they're like media DAOs, collector DAOs. And, last year we saw the collector DAO raise, 40 odd million US dollars to bid on a copy of the US Constitution. Now, unfortunately, They lost out to Ken Griffin from the hedge fund who was embroiled in the whole GameStop saga. But that was quite interesting. Yeah. And it just goes to show the power of a DAO when you can, individually, these people who are part of that DAO might not have been able to, almost guaranteed would not have been able to buy that DAO or at least bid on it. But when you pool the wealth of, thousands of people, then you can do some, big things. I mean, what were your thoughts on the collector DAO saga, if you will?
I think collector DAO, like Constitution DAO, was very good in a way that it gave us kind of a free PR into this space, right? Mm-hmm. And the average person might have not known about crypto space or had a negative impression of what crypto meant, given the fiasco we've had in 2017 and 2018, and just the volatility of crypto assets in general. I think a good paradigm shift has happened in a way that people realize, collective power could be something very interesting if everyone comes together into one, right? If they share a same vision and have a same mission, we can actually achieve something greater with the power of everyone chipping in or people participating in one entity instead of being scattered and having or entrusting into one single entity or group of people who are going to make decisions on behalf of you. And that's why, as you said, there have been so many DAOs that have appeared since last year, media DAOs, investment DAOs like ourselves, and collector DAOs and other social DAOs. And I think that just shows that could be the future of how an organization is run and also how people come together as a community.
Yeah, and that's effectively what DAOs do. I mean, change the way organizations raise and allocate capital and coordinate resources towards some predefined, or maybe not yet defined end that the organization is looking to work towards. And I think we're starting to see things evolve in the space of not-for-profits and charities who are using, say, for example, NFTs and DAOs as a mechanism by which they can raise capital towards funding these particular causes that they care about, which is exciting. And there are noble causes like that. And then in other cases, there are collector DAOs such as the Pleaser DAO, who bought that infamous Wu-Tang Clan album, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, which was originally purchased for about $2 million by the embattled former tech entrepreneur Martin Shkreli. And he used to use it as a coaster and whatnot, which would drive Wu-Tang fans absolutely insane. But through the Pleaser DAO, they were able to raise $4 million US. And now if you're a member of that DAO, from what I understand, you can actually listen to that album. No one else can, but hey, if you're a member of that DAO, you can, which is pretty exciting if you're a Wu-Tang fan.
Exactly.
So with Global Coin Research being an investment DAO, now, how might this differ from, say, traditional, say, early stage investment mechanisms? So obviously you've got venture capital, you've got angel investment funds and syndicates, you've got, say, equity crowdfunding platforms nowadays. Why would someone gravitate to something like a GCR over these other mechanisms?
Yeah, so I would say the key differentiator between GCR and traditional venture capital firms or other investment funds and larger investment DAOs that we know of, like the Lao or Flamingo DAO, is that we actually do not pull together a fund, right? Mm-hmm. Venture capital funds and private investment funds raise capital from institutional investors like pension funds, high net worth individuals, family offices, and they raise a formal fund from which they invest out of. Yep. Similarly, larger investment DAOs like the Lao and the Flamingo DAO, they actually ask the members to commit a certain amount of money and they pull that into a fund through which they invest out of that. So in a case like Steve, let's say you wanted to put $10,000 into the Lao and participate in this investment DAO, your $10,000 will be pulled into this fund, right? The tricky thing is if the investment opportunity comes through the door to the Lao and you guys started reviewing it and assessing it, even if you might not like it, because it's a collective way of thinking, they actually would vote based. So depending on the voting, how it turns out, if the majority of the people who committed the money wants to invest in the opportunity, they would go ahead and invest in it, even if you might not want to do it. Yeah. So from our perspective, we thought we should actually let every member of our community to invest their own dollars, and they have the option to either invest or not. So when we actually, look at interesting, and exciting projects in crypto, everyone has an option to either invest or not. So that's the key differentiator between our investment DAO versus other investment vehicles that are out there.
Yeah, excellent. So what I'm reading on the GCR website as well is that there have been over 120, and that number may have gone up since this webpage went live, but over 120 crypto and non-crypto investment opportunities that have come past the GCR desk or Discord since launching last year. Now, in terms of those opportunities, how do you effectively go about sourcing them? Because, early stage investment opportunities, it's all about deal flow, right? And, nowadays we've seen platforms such as, say, Equitize here in Australia, which is an equity crowd funding platform, try to democratize access to early stage opportunities. But oftentimes the opportunities that end up on these platforms are perhaps ending up there because all the big VC funds and angel investors overlook them, and that's where they're going instead. But I've seen some pretty big deals come past GCR in the past few weeks alone. I mean, one was in OpenSea, another was in the Sandbox, and there have been numerous others. So where are these deals coming from? Are they actively being sought out by members of the GCR community, or are they more or less organic and inbound? I imagine it might be a bit of both.
Exactly. I think you hit it right there. So, initially when our founder Joyce started the DAO, obviously it was coming from her, right? She had the right extensive network. So her friends or her network, she was getting a lot of these opportunities inbound, right? Like such as you said, SpaceX, Kraken, Maple Finance, OpenSea, Animoca brands. Those larger names definitely come from our network that we have, either through our VC network or from our, syndicate network. So, but eventually now we have a system where we have a full flywheel effect where every community members could actually source ideas and to bring projects into the community, because we actually want to, as I said, like we want to decentralize the idea of investing, meaning every member has the same equal power as a core full-time members like myself. They can participate in bringing ideas to the community and then do the diligence calls, run the diligence, execute the investments on behalf of the community. We want to create a platform where anyone can do that. And that's what makes GCR very special.
Yeah. So effectively, anyone who is a member of GCI becomes kind of like a venture partner at a traditional venture fund, and they can source deals, bring the deals in, do the due diligence, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, if you decide to put this in front of the community, if you're a member, you can choose to opt in or not, as you said earlier.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
And in terms of like democratizing access to these opportunities, from what I see on the site, minimum ticket for most deals is about $5,000, which is, very reasonable for a lot of people. Is there still an element of needing to be accredited to take part in these deals?
Yeah, that's like a tricky part because like we are based in the US. Unfortunately, given the regulations, we need to ensure every member is accredited. Like if you're an offshore entity, I'm sure you can bypass that rule. But given that we want to be legal and compliant, we do have to make sure every member is accredited.
And the accreditation rules in the US, is that $2 million worth of net wealth? How does it work over in the States?
Yeah, so I think there are three ways at the moment where either your annual income is over, I believe, $200,000 per year, or you have a net worth of over $1 million. And obviously, there's an exemption if you have a spouse, right? It makes the rule a bit more easier to be accredited. But the third rule is obviously if you have some financial knowledge and have certifications, like have a Series 7 test, you would be an accredited investor. But what we know is that obviously the government is going to make the accreditation rule more easier for allow people to actually participate in these private investment opportunities, which were traditionally just been executed by larger institutional capital.
Yeah. And is that something that I suppose has been proposed as part of a bill? Do we have any indication as to when that might change and what that might change to?
Our hope is obviously it lowers the barriers to entry for people to participate in these deals. But, government is slow, so I can't predict how long it's going to take. But, there has been indication that, accreditation rule might be pretty strict. But at the same time, they do want to have some hurdles so that people who are responsible with their finances will be the ones participating in these deals where, a lot of the investments would be illiquid and potentially could go to zero, right? Most of the time, these venture deals go to zero. So they do still want people to take responsibility for their savings and finances, which I agree with.
Yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act between sort of democratizing access to investment opportunities and helping bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, but also protecting some of the have-nots who may not have the education and whatnot around how to manage their money and evaluate opportunities, and could end up getting burnt very quickly, especially in this space of Web3. I mean, it was just last week we saw one of the co-founders of Wonderland basically be outed and doxxed as someone who had been engaged in, I believe it was securities fraud in the past, but he'd been engaged in all sorts of nefarious crypto ventures. And we saw the price of Time, the related token, basically dropped from $10,000 down to about $300 over the past few weeks, and obviously dropped to about 3x on the back of that news. Now, with a lot of anonymity in the space and decentralization and whatnot, it is easier for people like the co-founder of Wonderland, whose name escapes me, to pull the rug from under people who perhaps don't have the education to navigate this space with diligence. And I suppose that's where some balance with regulation is required. I mean, How do you see that playing out? Because on one side, yes, the promise of Web3 is that it does help to more equitably distribute power and wealth and opportunity and whatnot. But at the same time, it does come with a lot of risks, at least at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think anonymity is a trend and it's a norm in crypto, right? You would see a lot of projects with, founders that you would never know what their true name is, what they look like. They would go by their Twitter name, their NFT profile picture, and they would be able to successfully fundraise given the hype that we're seeing, right? Lots of capital influx and a lot of these smart founders deciding to just, go with a pseudonymous name, identities.
Yeah.
I think given where we are in crypto, I do think it is important that, a lot of founders of these projects to be transparent, right? Like they need to be doxed. They actually have to use their real name and identity. But, given that there will be projects that will still be backed and supported by these anonymous, people who are going to be smart and genius and are going to create a product that's going to be very exciting, you still need to be cautious, as you said. So I think what the US has done is to make people be responsible and actually be wary of these opportunities, right? Like I do think Global Coin Research wants to democratize the investment process, but we definitely want to be careful and also screen out those investment opportunities on behalf of the community members who might be investing in these opportunities, right? So I think you do need two things, right? Like you do need a community and dedicated full-time core team who want to work with everyone else where there's no such thing as rug pull because we're aligned in one vision, right? We want to invest and support awesome projects. And second, you do have to, unfortunately, work with the government in this, right? Like you do need some form of authority to overlook at these projects that might be scamish, as you said, right? Like lots of question marks. You do need some form of, authority that governs this type of activity that we see in the space. So, the idea of can you go government free? Like, can you just go against them completely? I'm not a huge fan of it or believer, but I do think we could achieve a lot of things with a minimal oversight of the government. That's where I stand.
Yeah. And, the pre-internet age, even to some degree, regulation didn't come along purely because governments wanted to be pains in the butt. It came along oftentimes to protect people because things had gone wrong. I mean, Sarbanes-Oxley came along because of the Enron scandal and everything that happened with former Big Five accounting firm Arthur Andersen shredding papers, and that ultimately cost shareholders, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And so regulation exists to some degree to help protect people. At the same time, anything taken too far can do more harm than good. But one thing you touched on there is the fact that with GCR, you have a pool of people like yourself who have experience in the space who are helping to vet deals as well to protect members to some degree. And this aligns with an article that I contributed to GCR called Why Pure Decentralization Doesn't Work. And there are so many decentralization maximalists out there who think, no, just decentralize everything. Everyone gets one vote. And that's a perfect utopia. But it sounds to me, and based on my own sort of research in this space, that we need balance between centralization and decentralization, and that there are trade-offs when it comes to, say, speed, convenience, and so on, especially when you're trying to run an organization at scale. I mean, if every single decision needs to be subject to a vote, that organization is going to move very, very slowly, especially in a world like today where things move very quickly. So what are your thoughts on that balance between centralization and decentralization?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I think depending on how you look at it, right? Like decentralization can allow decisions to be made quicker or slower than actually centralized authority. For instance, we do not have to go through, for instance, for Global Coin Research, compared to, investment firms or typical venture capital firms, we don't have to go through multiple investment committee meetings to invest in a project, right? So we can sprint, right? We can, have a week and we can ask the members, hey, commit. This is the diligence we have done to date. Any more follow-up questions, we can, ask the founders about them. But we should be able to commit sooner than later, given that the project is almost finished with their fundraising. But as you said, on the other side, for governance issues, like you have to make a case that centralized authority can push certain proposal faster, while as a DAO like ourselves, we do need a majority, approval to push through an initiative, which we are compensating speed for the idea of equality.
Yeah.
Like how I think about this is that, given that a lot of DAOs like Global Coin Research, we're focused on equity and fairness. And I do think it's an easy concession for us to make for a greater change in how people interact and build. I do think, we do need to give up a little bit of speed for the idea that everyone actually has an equal power and feel included in every decision making is more important. And obviously, I think the speed will catch up as we see more DAO tools that will allow us to push through governance proposals faster, members to engage and vote on these matters easier than the current tools that they use to vote or participate in these discussions.
Yeah, because at the moment, it seems like the DAO sort of ecosystem is a bunch of sort of, distributed tools that kind of speak to each other. Like you might have a tool for voting, you have a tool for governance and whatnot, but then there'll be another tool to say act as a gating tool to, if you own tokens, you get into the Discord, or if you own tokens, you can access this article. Like there's just a whole hodgepodge of tools. And it sounds like there's not a one-stop shop that you can just turnkey. All right, here's my DAO solution and I'm ready to rock and roll. So if someone wanted to start their own DAO, it's a pretty steep learning curve.
It is. You're right. Because you're spending most of your time on Discord, but actually the voting happens on a separate website like Snapshot. People who are might be the most Web 3.0 crypto native might be confused on where can I vote on these, but then why do I have to have a separate wallet to connect to this website to vote? It's just tough, right? So even today, I was talking to a founder who's building a product that would theoretically have a Discord governance proposals all mashed into one, where every user could theoretically vote, participate, and also interact with other members in a one app rather than across 3 different apps.
Yeah, and I think that's a step in the right direction. And ultimately, this, it's still an early, it's a nascent space, and this will evolve with time, just as Web 2 and even Web 1 platforms did. But on the topic of, say, moving quickly, opportunity comes before the GCR community. Maybe you vote in a week. In my past, I wouldn't say my past life, but in my current life as well, one thing I've spent a lot of time researching and consulting to organizations on is delineating between, say, type 1 and type 2 decisions. And, type 1, big, hairy, audacious decision. Type 2, small, reversible, inexpensive decision. Now, the larger an organization gets, the more bureaucratic, they tend to treat every decision as type 2, and it just slows things down. Innovation suffers and nothing gets done. Whereas in, say, fast-moving, high-growth startup, type 2 decisions tend to be, say, distributed. Anybody can make them. Type 1 decisions is where let's bring the senior management team together to discuss this. Now, in the case of, say, a GCR or a DAO, I imagine that many of these decisions, say, how long we have to vote on an opportunity, how many votes we need, can be encoded so that you can effectively put fast decision-making or optimal decision-making into the DNA of an organization. And how does that play out with smart contracts and so on?
Yeah, I think you just described the future of how investment DAOs should move toward, right? I think a lot of DAOs currently have a smart contract where they have a set number of, they would set the limit of the period in which people can vote on each investment opportunity. And if you miss that deadline, your vote doesn't matter. People who voted, they get to have a say on what to do with it. Currently, we are implementing that idea too. But for instance, it is more of a manual process, but we do over-communicate for each deal, each investment opportunity for members to vote or make a decision on. But eventually, we're going to go to the little bit more efficient, faster way of, as you said, bringing a smart contract where we would set the period in which people can vote, voice their opinion on each investment opportunity so that we could move forward with other investment opportunities in a much more quicker and efficient way. At the moment, though, because of the process that we have in place, we still do want to promote more members to participate in a discussion, because what makes us interesting is that every member shares their perspective, their opinion, because we honestly don't know what our members do, right? Like, we all know that they like crypto, they love investing, that they are willing to, personally write their own check to these projects early on, usually seed or pre-seed. So given that we've created an environment where, open opinion doesn't get, debunked or get criticized, I think now we're going to move toward an environment as you described, where we're going to have kind of a forum where people can exchange ideas and their views and opinions, but then we're going to also have a smart contract on top of that where those decision making will be made in a more automatic way for each investment opportunity. So that's where we're headed toward.
Yeah, and I think, someone who's consulted organizations on organizational hygiene, being able to encode optimal behavior is definitely exciting. And on the community, you mentioned, you don't know who a lot of these people are, what they do, but we know they like crypto, they like investing in early stage opportunities. But it is a very engaged community in the GCR Discord. And, some people might think, if I put up a Discord, I'll post something on Twitter, I'll promote this new DAO I'm doing, it's just going to, hundreds and thousands of people are going to flood in. But even if you get people in there, you need to engage them. And that's a key part of community building and building trust and everything else. What do you think GCR has done well to, one, build the community, but also ensure that community is engaged and become ambassadors for what GCR is doing and invite other people into the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, successful DAOs know how to not only recruit new members, as you said, but retain them and also bring them, incentivize them to bring more friends, colleagues, etc., to the community. So I think we've done three things pretty well, in my opinion. I think, as I said, we have a diverse community that ranges from crypto natives who are willing to write, $5,000 check, $10,000, $20,000 check to these projects. So they're very knowledgeable about the space, but they're also crypto newbies like myself when I first joined Global Coin Research late last year. I think we have a tier membership systems where anyone can theoretically join our community and participate in these events, like weekly calls that are run by our community manager, like Arthur and other contributors in the space, who would kind of run through what has happened in past week, exciting events, exciting headlines, share those articles with members to get them understand, what's happening in the space, what's the headline that you should be mindful of. And they make it a fun experience, right? Even a crypto newbie like me, like when I first joined, I was able to listen to them and just laugh at it, right? It's fun, exciting. They really dumb the content down for anyone to really understand. And we have a lot of, different fireside chats with our supporters and our network, like Bobby Ong from CoinGecko was recently on a fireside chat with me, talking about his experience as a founder of CoinGecko, which is now the largest, analytics tool company that you use in crypto. I think there are so many community events that we run for these crypto newbies or even more sophisticated people to participate and learn from. I think that's the first thing we've done really well. We provide a lot of these events for either sophisticated people or newbies so that everyone feels like they're part of a community. Second is, I think we fostered an inclusive community where everyone feels valued, right? We actually have a very nice community. Like, we don't have any jerks, no offensive languages. They actually they're very friendly.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised. You have 2,500 people who are complete strangers to each other. They don't even know their face. They just go by a username, right? I mean, I use my real name, that's Jin Kang, but some people use crypto lover or something. And then that person participates in this discussion and people just talk as if they're best friends, right? I think that fostering of the environment really came from top bottom, where founder Joyce and our core team members are very friendly and we get along well whenever we make an initiative decision making, where I think it flows down to the community where people look up to that and create an environment for every other members, right? If people have hard time navigating toward one channel to the other, people are helping each other out, which is an awesome thing that's pretty rare across different DAOs. And lastly, I think is the deal flow, right? We're an investment DAO. I think we, pride ourselves for having an awesome deal pipeline, know exactly how to run a conduct diligence on behalf of the members so that they understand what are some key points they have to be mindful of before making a decision if they want to invest or not. That really made us, I guess, more unique and a powerful player in the space that was able to invest in awesome projects across crypto. So I think those three things allowed us to have a community that's very unique and, I guess the only one in terms of investment DAO that's out there.
Yeah. And I definitely agree and echo all of those points. I mean, when I first joined the Discord, there was countless events and calls that you could log into to meet people, to learn about GCR, to get across emerging or deals that are being evaluated at the moment. The content, there's a couple of emails that come out every single week as well. And to your point about everybody being friendly, like it is very refreshing when you compare that to, say, Reddit or Twitter these days, where everybody's basically just yelling at each other in 100 or 280 characters now, and it's just a refreshing sort of change. And having said that, in other Discords, one thing that particularly noobs might find is that they'll get DM'd by a lot of scammers trying to get their secret keys and whatnot, and that's something that I found with the GCR Discord. Like, I've not had any nefarious people DM me. It seems like, for the most part, the lid has been kept well and truly on any potential scammers, which, again, if you have heaps of people DMing you in a Discord channel, that's going to change perhaps your perceptions of that channel and how much you can trust it and everything else. So it seems like there's been a concerted effort to put a lid on these things.
Exactly. I got to thank Arthur, who's like our community lead, who's also in charge of, tech and the back end. And we have a very sophisticated, system to get into the community just to kick out any bots or scammers, as you said. So we've actually gotten a complaint that, like, for a community of your size, like, you guys have a very difficult system to onboard, but we told them, like, that's how you eliminate the bots who DM you, who are going to bother you throughout the day, right? Which is common and across different NFT projects or other DAOs. So, yeah,
and I think that's absolutely critical and something that not enough DAOs or platforms in this space are thinking about. Even some of the more prominent players, you join their Discord channel, and if you've got your DMs turned on for that server, you will start getting flooded with nefarious folks trying to steal your crypto essentially. And I think platforms and communities and DAOs need to take it upon themselves to do what GCR has done and make sure that their community is protected, because that is also one of the key things. Maybe it's the fourth thing, in addition to the three things you outlined, that's going to help people trust the community and build better bonds with it as well. Now, on community building, on DAOs, it's all rosy right now, but what have some of, I'm sure, the challenges been, or some of the key learnings been over the past, say, year in this evolution of global coin research?
Yeah, for me, just coming out of a large organization like Bank of America, or working in a very, sophisticated environment like a private equity firm, getting used to the idea where everything has to run by everyone else was something I had to get over with, right? I had to understand that there is a deeper meaning behind the idea that everyone gets to participate and be involved in the decision-making is a powerful motive. And I think that was one thing I had to really get myself comfortable, familiar with this idea, and then push through it, right? Another challenge that I would say with a venture DAO is, I think you mentioned earlier, leveraging current smart contract to automate a lot of the deal processes that we have in place. that's definitely going to be a challenge that we're going to face, right? Like we want to scale to the next level. And in order for us to, compete with the largest venture capital firms out there and be unique, we do need to have more automation in place. And I think that really depends on strong founders making a lot of the tools available for our DAO to leverage to make everything streamlined, automate processes so that we could invest quicker, effectively, have members, participate in these votings, decision making quicker, easier for them so that it's not an issue for them, right? I think that's going to be a key challenge that we're going to have in the next, year or next 6 months. But, on the flip side, the good thing is that we are seeing a lot of smart founders building these DAO tools that will allow us to move into that right direction.
Yeah.
So that gives me some comfort that we're going to be able to, automate a lot of the processes and scale the community with the right people. Mm-hmm. And so I think hopefully that answers your question about the challenges that we have been facing.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And one of the other challenges that I'm seeing other DAOs, or at least ideas that they're wrestling with, is this idea of having to associate the DAO with, say, an LLC for regulatory purposes. Now, I imagine that's already been done in the case of GCR.
Yeah. So like whenever we make an investment, we create a Delaware-based entity, LLC entity through which we invest out of. But at the moment, yes, we are not incorporated as a corporate structure yet. So that is probably one thing we have to, address eventually with given that SEC might really regulate every tokens to be security, then we got to think about how we can shape our DAO to be compliant with the new law that might potentially be pushed out of SEC.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, it's still kind of early and there's a lot of uncertainty to navigate in terms of, do you need an LLC? How does that work? What's the SEC saying? And there's just a lot of conversation. Same thing here in Australia. Like there is talk about some regulation being introduced where DAOs do become incorporated organizations in some way, shape, or form. But then there are question marks around, will that affect the nature and the spirit of what a DAO is? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe it will provide that layer of governance and trust that might be necessary, and might also then take the microphone, or not the microphone, but might take the spotlight off DAOs so they can go off and do what they do without having to worry about the SEC or ASIC here in Australia one day just throwing the hammer down. But one thing we actually kind of skipped over today, Jin, was really around the performance of global coin research. Like you said, it's still a very young DAO, very young investment DAO. How many investments have been made? What kind of companies have been invested in? And what have the returns been thus far?
Yeah, I guess this is going to surprise you guys. You guys are probably expecting minimal return, but we've invested $31 million to date with 31 investments committed by our community members. It's secret, but I would say the returns on our liquid investments, meaning the investment that have been liquid, are at 30 times at the moment. So if you put the context around that figure, it's quite amazing that we are in a quote unquote bear market, right? In a way, because the market has declined close to 50% from all-time high late last year. So even after this decline, we're at 30 times. So we're pretty confident that other investment opportunities will probably, return a similar, performance, given that we have strong convictions on other projects that we have invested to date. In terms of the investment opportunities that we look at, we're pretty generalist, right? Because it is a community-driven investment platform. We invest across DeFi, social tokens, NFT, gaming, and lastly, DAO tools and infrastructure, which is going to be very crucial for a lot of applications we see in the future. So we look at a lot of projects, and I think we really look for niche products, strong founders, and a right product market fit, right? I think those three things are the key drivers behind our investment decisions.
Yeah. And what are some of the bigger organizations that you've invested in? I mean, earlier you did mention SpaceX. I mean, what are some other names that people might be familiar with?
Yeah, Kraken, Maple Finance, those are another like investment opportunity that we've invested in. We also invested in Aurora, which is a L2, I guess like a bridge that's being built on Near. That's a household name in Near protocol if you follow them. Other investments that we've made, Coinvise, social token folks, and Parcel, Bribe, which are DAO tools that you can use. And we actually work with Parcel to actually pay out our contributors and our core team. So it's interesting, right? A lot of the investment that we make, at the end of the day, we also use them as a DAO. And I think that gives a clear synergy that we can bring to the table that a lot of other investment firms can't.
Yeah, excellent. And just to put those returns, to put that performance into perspective, rather, you mentioned like 30x, your typical VC fund, when they invest in a startup, they're looking for like 18% plus, internal rate of return. Maybe they're looking to return 3x on the fund. And that's typically like 5 to 7, 8 years. And we're looking at like 30x in 1 year. Now, of course, this might be also testament to the fact that crypto is offering people outsized returns at the moment. And of course, this doesn't constitute investment advice. And we've seen a bit of a bear market play out over the past 30 days or so. But, when you compare, say, for an example, I bought the Lux token last week, which is the token associated with the Lux Rare NFT marketplace. And if you stake that token, which for people who aren't familiar with the lingo, think of it kind of like a term deposit at a bank, you can get about 600%, average yield, which compared to say what a bank will pay you at the moment, which might be less than 1%, is phenomenal. And of course, the dynamics behind this and the way tokens work and the incentive mechanisms, of course, help play into that. But it's just fascinating to see, the returns that one can access in crypto, as you've clearly demonstrated, far outweigh what we're seeing in traditional finance and in Web 2.
Yeah, it's exciting. And as you said, it's not investment advice because, it is high risk, high return, right? In crypto, it's probably more high risk, high return, given that the diligence you have to conduct is more difficult, given that there's lack of information out there, resources that you can use to make an informed decision. But the good thing is, as you said, if you are, an informed investor and focused and get into the right stage at pre-seed and seed stage, in which a lot of our investments have been, I think you can make an outsized return with the right risk underneath. So I think you can underwrite an investment with right risk profile if you do the right work as an investor.
Yeah. And of course, the same rules apply as they did in traditional finance, which is, don't invest more than you can afford to lose, diversify.
Exactly.
If you're going to put your money into high risk, high reward assets, well, maybe invest a smaller percentage of your portfolio into those and have some reliably predictable returns as well. But again, this does not constitute financial advice. But yeah, do your due diligence, speak to smart people, do your research before making any decisions. And also make sure that your wallet is secure, because you can make the best decision in the world, but if your wallet isn't secure, well, then it may be all for naught. So, Jin, today has been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed the conversation. If people want to get involved with global coin research, if they want to connect with yourself as well, what's the best thing to do?
Yeah, so I think people who listen to podcasts, you guys should definitely visit us on our website, globalcoinresearch.com. And we have a Twitter account too, which hopefully you can share that after the podcast. But if you also want to personally, reach out to me for any questions or advices, if you want to make a switch from traditional finance to crypto or anything you want to just chat about, I'm open arms, right? My name is Jin Kang, and my Twitter is also the Jin Kang, and also on Discord is the Jin Kang. So it should be easy to find me and just DM me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jin. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll add all of those links to the show notes so people can find both JCR and yourself. So I hope you enjoy the cold New York weather, but all the best with JCR.
Thank you, Steve, for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Steve again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to receive a weekly email from me, complete with reflections, books I've been reading, words of wisdom, and access to blogs, ebooks, and more that I'm publishing on a regular basis, just leave your details at futuresquared.xyz/subscribe and you'll receive the very next one. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, take a minute to like, share, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It goes a long way to giving the podcast the exposure it needs so I can continue bringing you guests and conversations of the highest caliber. You can catch me on Twitter at Steve Gliveski and on Instagram at @TheSteveGliveski. Until next time.
Hasta la vista, baby.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.